Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Stats All Day with Dr. O'Day. Today we're going to learn how to run an independent samples t-test using JAMOVI. So in JAMOVI we just come up here to t-test and we click independent samples t-test. Get rid of that. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run this for condition assignment in my study. In this study, participants were assigned to view a situation in which a parent either affirmed or backlashed a child for gender deviant behavior. And I'm getting rid of the control condition right now just so that we can run this as a t-test, in which case we only have two groups. I'm going to use that to predict parent competence. In this study, let's say that I was hypothesizing that parents who affirm their child for gender deviant behavior will be perceived as significantly more competent than parents who backlash their child for gender deviant behavior. If I didn't have a specific prediction about the directionality, I could run this as a two-tailed test, but let's say that I went into this thinking that participants are going to perceive that parent more positively and as more competent when they affirm that child for their behavior. So next I want to ask for a measure of effect size. That's going to give me Cohen's d, which is a measure of how many standard deviations one mean is from another. I want to ask for the descriptive so that I can actually see the actual means and standard deviations of those two different groups. And I want to ask for a confidence interval. So over here, what we can see is right off the bat, and actually I'm going to come down here, let's talk about the descriptives first. So what we're seeing is that parents in the affirmation condition were perceived as a mean of 7.93 on a scale from 1 not at all competent to 9 very competent with a standard deviation of 1.15. So our participants are perceiving the person in the affirmation condition pretty positively, while in the backlash condition they're perceived with a mean of 3.41, so not very competent there with a standard deviation of 1.94. Now my test statistic T is presented here, and the way that this works is all test statistics are basically a measure of the size of the effect over some measure of variability or error. And so as that test statistic increases, it means compared to the error, our effect is getting larger. And so a larger t-value is going to correspond to a lower p-value. At the point in which your p-value crosses 0.05, which is going to be the alpha level that we use in psychology, then we start to say that this t-value is significant. So what we're seeing here is we have a pretty large t-value of 15.4. Usually t-values start to become significant around 2 to 2.5. There are 113 degrees of freedom here. Each group in my study has n-1 degrees of freedom. So participants in the affirmation condition, there are 60 degrees of freedom there. And in the backlash condition, there's 53 degrees of freedom there. We add that together to get 113 degrees of freedom with 115 total participants in my study. My p-value is less than 0.001 here, so some people might say that this is highly significant, but I'm just going to say that it is significant. So participants in the affirmation condition were perceived as significantly more competent than parents who were in the backlash condition. I then have my 95% confidence interval. This is giving me the interval in which we are 95% confidence. The real population difference is falling. So what we're seeing here is that the 95% confidence interval is saying that the difference between these two means is from 4.04 to infinity, and the reason that it's infinity is because I had a specific hypothesis about the directionality. You can see here if I do a two-sided t-test, then what it's going to show me is a 95% confidence interval ranging from 3.94 to 5.10. My Cohen's d then is 2.88, meaning that the participants perceive the affirmation condition to be 2.88 standard deviations larger than participants in the backlash condition. And this is a huge effect. This was a surprisingly large effect when we actually ran this study. But I hope you learned something. Let me know if you have any questions. Have a great rest of your day.